here live with Gillian, and we are going to be talking about challenging the social norms of motherhood. I'm amazed how many times I've said that and not totally botched it because of repeating myself. Okay, so Gillian and I have crossed paths a few times and been, cordial, friendly, whatever, but we've never really put two and two together and seen how similar paths we're on and all of this. Gillian specifically works with moms to challenge the social norms of motherhood and prioritize themselves unapologetically, which is just like, yes, it needs to happen much, much more, right? So I will let you quickly introduce yourself a bit, give a more detailed explanation that makes more sense because you, and then we can hop right in if that works.
Sure. So hi, everybody. I'm so glad if you're here. I'm so excited about this for the same reason that you are. This topic, I'm so incredibly passionate about it. So I'm based near New York City. And, my interest in this topic really started when I had my first child over 4 years ago, so when I first became pregnant and living in the United States and just seeing what the social norms are here and, navigating all of the different things socially in the healthcare system, at work, like all of these different things that are kind of working in tandem to make moms feel like there aren't a lot of choices. Things are done a certain way. This is how it is. I kind of didn't feel good about that, and the more I talked to other moms, I realized not only do they not feel good about it, but it's like really affecting our mental health, burnout. Like, I can't believe how many moms feel burnt out by being a mom. Like, that sounds like something, somebody who works like a very hands-on physical, like blue collar job would say, but being burnt out as a mom, I don't remember seeing my mom that way, my aunts that way. Like, this is a thing we're experiencing now, and it's almost like this cultural phenomenon, but in a very negative way. So I work with moms to question all of these things. Why is it like this? Is this serving us now? Just because it has been done one way for whatever amount of time. Is that the way we should do it now? Or is there a way it should be done? These are words that I bring up a lot that we're questioning now. And so I work mainly with moms who are millennial age, like kids who are either newborns up to like kindergarten years, around there. But I'm not exclusive to that. But that's kind of where I'm seeing a lot of moms struggling now with these feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's not exclusive to that, but there's 100%, there's like this pervasive belief that you have to be perfect, right? That you have to be able to manage it all. And I think that's what really causes that burnout, like you say. And you're right. And it's funny, I was on a call earlier today where I was sarcastically responding to our business statements, like what we do, all of that, so that we could kind of get a feel for if you were talking to somebody who was challenging you. And I think the question that he asked me specifically was like, what's your problem? Like, why should moms not be just happy being a mom? You literally decided you were going to have kids. That's it. You should just be happy with that. And I knew the point of the exercise, but I was so tempted to start ranting about the patriarchy and just lose it, right? Because I was like, oh my gosh, it's true. That is really, this has been the repeated thing, right? Like, this is what it is that people are expecting. And, it goes hand in hand with all the patriarchy stuff, right? At one point, there was a time in the world where women were revered and respected. And it didn't mean that they were better than men, but it just meant that men fully stood behind women in everything that they do and the power that we have. And raising children is a big job, and maintaining a home is a big job. And if you try to keep up with the Joneses, oh my gosh, like, forget it, right? It's just, when things started kind of globally veering towards men being above women, right? It was then expected that women would just meet these certain standards. Then we hit the point of feminism and everybody like, oh, we're equals and women should be able to work and be outside of the home and all of this stuff, which personally, I mean, yeah, they should absolutely be allowed. But personally, I think that moms should stay home with their kids. I just don't think that they should have to give up on their dreams to do it. And I don't think that they should have to do it alone without that energetic support and without that emotional support and everything that we need, right? Because especially if we're going to also provide financially in our families. Like that has traditionally been the role of men. So if we're going to take that on, then they should also take on some of what the women have been taking on and what's been happening.
So I feel you 100% where you're coming from about like kind of looking towards the patriarchy and like the historical way that the genders have kind of worked together, or how they've felt about each other, or the roles that they've taken, whether by choice, by chance, or intentionally. And I do think that, you know, feminism really did, it did a lot for women in that it provided these opportunities to do what it was we wanted, right? Whether it was to work in an office or to work at home or to not work at all. Like it just provided the freedom to make choices. And that I think is that's like the really important thing about that time, but also about now, having the freedom to make choices. And I feel like in some ways we've lost the freedom to make choices because there's so much on our shoulders that there are a lot of choices that are maybe not within our grasp anymore. And part of that is because, as you said, like if we're providing financially, right? If we're out of the house working or whatever, the expectation should be that the partner should step up, you know, and things should be split in a way that it works for the whole family. What I see a lot with the moms that I work with is that that is not the case. The partner's not being a partner. And this is where a lot of it really stems from. You know, when I talk about self-care with the moms I work with, they say they don't have time for self-care. And I'm saying, oh, you don't have time, or your partner isn't, you know, taking over so you can then take the time. And a lot of times that's what it is. It's just this social and cultural belief that the moms are more responsible for child rearing and for the house and also going to work. You know, I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. It's what I always wanted. But in my early 20s, I went to college. I got a master's degree. I have, you know, 15 years of career experience. And yet I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but culturally I was kind of looked at as, oh, that's the choice you're making. You're going to waste your degree. You're going to waste those 15 years of work. And it's just a very strange reaction to have in making a choice that I knew was good for my family. Regardless of my reasoning, it shouldn't matter. So the expectations placed upon moms makes it so that no matter what we choose to do, people are judgmental about it. They have something to say, and it's very, the expectations are just, they're impossible. And it's cultural, you know, it comes from historically just how the genders have been.
No, I agree 100%, is like that historical piece, right? Like it has wreaked so much havoc. And now, like, I feel like the whole feminine movement is bringing us in the right direction, but it hasn't addressed that the rest of our things that we were trying, like we were doing all of the things at home and we were expected to, right? All the cleaning, all the cooking, all the child minding, and then all the mental load, right? Which is talked about so much. And then on top of it, the whole feminism thing and allowing women to work and equal rights and all of it, it was a fantastic attempt, but it just didn't address that really all the things we were doing. Just because they didn't provide a dollar for our family didn't mean that they weren't hard or time consuming or any of that. And then, yes, like the mental health part of it, when you have that whole mental load and nobody's helping you with it, and then you're also working full time, or whether you're working from home or working outside of the home, either way, if you're running a business from home, trying to do that with your kids, as we're experiencing on this call, like I'm getting notified that my daughter didn't pick up my son. And I'm like, well, where is she? I don't know what's going on, but that's motherhood. And that's part of why I do believe that mothers should be home with their kids, is because you know, no stranger, no other person is going to do for my kids what I'm going to do. Right. So I do believe that. But I also do believe, and I embody it, right? We have other things to do as well. Just because I'm a mom does not mean I have to drop the rest and forget about all my dreams and the things that make me passionate and hobbies and anything. And yeah, so I think I feel like I went on a little bit of a tangent, but it's just, we're expected, like there's such high expectations, and expectations is something that I talk about a lot, but like we have expectations for ourselves because of what's been handed down from mothers who didn't have to work, or like possibly the generation before. Some of our mothers did work, some of them didn't, mine didn't. But so it actually, like, I had it in my head that I shouldn't work because my mom didn't work. And then it was like, what, you expect me to work? It was like, and which now seems so silly because actually I want to work. Like I have things that I want to do. Right. But yeah, just there's so many different expectations coming from so many different sources on women in general, and specifically on moms, that it's like, who even knows what to do, let alone try to manage it all. So I think as far as society goes, this is one of the most important issues, because as moms, if we aren't taken care of, how do we take care of our kids? And if our kids aren't taken care of, what does the next generation turn out like? Right. And it just ripples out. Again, this is a conversation I was having earlier today, where just the ripple effect of all of these things. And I really do believe that moms are central and integral to all of that. We have an impact on so many different areas of life in such a different way than men do, right? And so I think it's not acceptable that we don't have the supports in place. And so people like you, people like me, this is what is really driving us, that we know needs to change for this world to be running the way it should be running, right? And we all know it's not right. And I'm going to mute again and just check my things and make sure my kid's getting picked up here. So you go right ahead again.
Sure. Obviously, I agree 100%. Moms really make things happen. Like we are the ones who are kind of making the world turn. And I do think it's really interesting to look at the expectations of moms and then look at the expectations of dads. What are the expectations of dads? That they'll provide, I guess. And that's kind of where it ends socially, for socially and culturally, that's kind of where it ends. Within each particular family, sure, there are specific expectations, and some fathers can rise to the occasion. But socially, men for the most part don't have, dad blogs or all of the, social media, like self-help, like life coach for
Yes.
dad, because the pressures and expectations aren't placed on them the way they're placed on us. Like we need this because it's driving us crazy. We're driving ourselves into the ground. And here are the dads, the generic dad. I'm going with like your average generic, run of the mill American dad, because I'm in the US. And I just, when I see these average dads going to work, which is great, working for their family, but then they come home and like, okay, where's my dinner? I'm going to hang out and watch TV for 4 hours. Okay, like you're going to get the kid all night, right? Okay, are you going to make my lunch in the morning so I don't have to do it? Like all of those types of things, like that drives me crazy. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The distribution of domestic labor is just so out of whack. And partially it's because of the cultural expectations. When a dad is going to be a dad, hey, like, good job, buddy. And like, that's kind of it. You light a cigar and that's the whole thing. Like, you don't have
Yes.
a whole lot of like, oh, okay, you're going to read the book, right? And here, like, what's like all of the different things that moms are expected to do. Sure, because we go through it physically, like there are things that we do need to do differently, but the partner is a partner for a reason. And that is apparent as well from the beginning. So if you're not getting that partnership, it doesn't make sense anymore. Like we know better than previous generations. We should do better, especially because the whole "it takes a village" thing, which is very true. In our type of society now, it just doesn't exist. People move around for jobs and things like that, or everybody's really busy, like grandparents are now still working, so they can't come around and take care of the kids. Like the proverbial village that we may have imagined when we were younger, it doesn't exist in the same way anymore for almost anybody. Some people have it, and that's a wonderful thing, but most people don't. And that means that the partner needs to step up even more. And I think part of that is culturally, just expectations are not there for dads. And it's kind of, I think that's offensive to dads, because wouldn't you want to lift up a dad and support a dad and say, hey, you're taking on this whole new phase of life and you're going to do great at changing diapers and you're going to do great at, you know, cleaning the kitchen when your spouse is taking care of the kids. It's not always about the fun stuff like teaching how to ride a bike or being there for the first day of school. Like, that's all wonderful. But how about the dirty stuff, the really hard stuff? How about you take a feeding at night so I can sleep? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, same goes for all the parts of it. There's so many parts of motherhood that don't really get talked about, right? Like the level of patience that we have to have with whining toddlers and, things like that. And I'm not saying, again, it's like that generalized statement because there are men who handle it. I actually have a good friend who's a stay-at-home dad and mom worked outside the home, right? Like it happens, but it's so rare, like you said, and it's the expectations are just different. And realistically, I don't know what that looks like on their end either. I don't know if this friend of mine is, a stay-at-home dad at the level that a stay-at-home mom would be. Who knows? It might be a very different situation, right? The wife might be coming home and having to deal with a total disaster when, she would have had it all handled or whatever. Like that could be the case, or it might not. I don't actually know as far as that goes. But yes, of course, there are men that step up or that have been taught better or who, have just had a different experience than that. And I think that's wonderful. But I also think it shouldn't be like a big like celebration for them because it should just be what's expected in the same way that it's just expected of a woman. And really, even as a mom, just because we have those expectations doesn't mean we know how to do all of those things either. We are having to learn in the same way that these men are, right? The first time you ever change a diaper is still the first time you ever change a diaper, right? It doesn't matter that you're a woman. You're not just magically better at it. You have to practice. And of course, most of us ladies, we've had more practice than most men because even in our, younger years, we helped or learned or whatever to do that stuff. Again, that's a total like, Jace, did you pick him up? Okay, no, I'm on live right now. Okay. Okay. The child issue got sorted out. I'm emailing the school, like, hello, somebody tell me if my kid is picked up or if I need to like get off this live right now. You guys really though, this is the perfect example, right? It's mom life and having to juggle and having to, why my ex is messaging me to resolve it is because my job, my business is not equal in his eyes to his job. It's not as important. It doesn't matter as much. I'm at home, so I should be able to drop and run. Doesn't matter that the baby's napping. Doesn't matter, and I won't even, honestly, I've more than gotten over the fact that there is unfairness in our relationship is a big part of why I left, right? But this is really the perfect example, right? I have to sit here, running this live, emailing the school, hoping my kid's picked up. He just turns around and goes back to work, right? Like you need to deal with this. And it's totally expected. And I also say a lot of the time that sometimes we need to take a little bit of responsibility for that as well. Like I know in the beginning of my relationship, I never would have stood up and said, hey, this is a problem, right? This is not how it should be. And so by allowing it, sometimes we also encourage it, right? And so it is important that we stand up, that we say like, hey, this is not right. And here's why, and explain it and everything, and give them the benefit of the doubt that, maybe they actually didn't know because it's literally been trained into them too their entire lives, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now that my brain can be wholly on this, I so apologize. What a gong show, which is not my norm. Like usually I schedule these things during nap time. It's quiet. There's no distractions. There's no problem. But okay, so with all of the social norms for motherhood, one of the biggest problems that I've found, and I know you have too, because this is all playing into what you talk about, but mom guilt around not being able to do it all, right? So what is one thing that you recommend for moms to do so that they can stop feeling mom guilt?
The first thing that I tell moms when they're feeling mom guilt is stop comparing yourself to anybody else. A lot of times moms feel mom guilt when they are looking at what other moms are doing, whether it be on social media, whether it be mom friends, you never know, ever know what somebody's truly going through, what they're really experiencing. They're either not going to tell you if you see them in person, maybe they feel embarrassed about something or whatever. Or, if you're looking through, if you're scrolling on social media, like you're seeing what people choose to show. And to compare every part of your life to the things that people are choosing to share, it's apples and oranges, for your family what's best, for you what's best. So stop comparing yourself to anyone else, even your own parents. I was having this conversation recently about how anything you might remember about how your parents did things, it was after years of experience, right? Like they had years of experience being a parent, probably messing up here and there. We all do it. So to even compare to the people that intimately, it doesn't work. It doesn't serve us. Times have changed. We can't look backwards. Like we're in the here and now. So don't compare to anybody else and do what you feel is right. And that's not to say that we shouldn't seek advice. It's not to say we shouldn't read up on things. There's a
Of
difference
course.
between learning and being like influenced or inspired. I feel very inspired by certain people. And I say, you know what? I didn't know about that way of parenting. I like that, I'm going to take that. But if I see somebody else who's like perfected it and I'm still struggling, like I'm in my journey where I am today. This is my present.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that I can have a job that allows me to be here with my wild child and holding him in my lap while I'm on a Zoom/live, But yeah, I think what you were saying before, right, about it takes a village. Yes, it's great to ask for help when you need it. It really is. And actually, it takes a lot of strength to ask for help. And a lot of the time we see it, we view it. Mom's working. Be nice and quiet, okay? It almost feels like a weakness to ask for help, but it's actually a strength. It is, because to be able to suck that feeling up and go and get help when you need it takes a lot of courage. And then, like you were saying, with the inspiration versus influence, right? We don't want to be influenced and seeing other people online not really have a good picture in our minds of what the truth is of their life. And then, being inspired, finding people that inspire us. Without inspiration, I don't even know what I would do, right? I have so many people that I follow, so many people. Like it takes me as much time as my job, because I'm just like, I thrive off of that inspiration and on having role models to look up to, on having things that tell me what to aspire to, right? Like we don't just magically come up with all of the things. Okay, so with the trying not to feel the mom guilt, it's not just a choice though, right? To not feel the mom guilt. Like that part of it is deciding like, I don't have to feel that way, but what are the actual like steps that people can take as far as like trying to, and I'm sorry if you answered this because my brain.
Well, I definitely think so. First of all, I try to do an audit of what I follow and what's serving me, because I know that there are things that kind of bring me down a notch or two. Sometimes that includes accounts or even, kind of spending time with people who make me feel like I'm questioning myself too much. But I also spend a lot of time in self-reflection, and this has helped a lot of the moms that I work with, is journaling and kind of tapping into your subconscious and what your true beliefs are. Because if you tap into what your true beliefs are, a lot of times you'll find that your expectations of yourself are not always aligned with what you're hearing from everywhere else. So it's really important to tune out a lot of that noise and just kind of sit with yourself for a little while and like understand what your beliefs are and what your values are, what it is that you want, like who you want to be as a mom, right? Sometimes I tell my moms that I work with, like, the goal is not necessarily to be a good mom, because that places judgment on there's a good, there's a bad, and you're allowed,
Mm,
that's kind of allowing somebody else's definition of what mothers should be to then influence you. Like, you decide what adjective you're going for, whatever it is, that, like, that's your choice. But it takes self-reflection, and for me and for a lot of the moms I work with, journaling has really been a good key to that. And once you go through that process, you're able to see that you are, like, what you want to do. You don't need the external influence so much. And one of the last things I do, it's kind of just like a sweet kind of thing, but I say, look at yourself through your child's eyes. if,
mm,
if you look at yourself through your child's eyes, like, what is there to feel guilty about?
yeah. No, I love that. That is a really great way to look at it. Like, I've had many moments in motherhood, as I'm sure most of us have, where my kids have said something and it's just like, oh, and it just gives you this like, oh, okay, I'm not doing that bad, right? And it's like, and it's unfortunate that we feel like we're doing that bad. But yeah, if we intentionally look at it from that perspective, this is like the one example that's popping into my head right now is when my oldest daughter was probably 2 or 3. No, she was 2. And she was playing with my stretch marks on, like, just kind of like tracing them. And she asked me what they were, and I told her, like, when she was in my belly that it stretched out really big because she was such a big baby and all of this stuff. And she was like, oh yeah. And they're beautiful scratches, right, mama? Like, I gave you beautiful scratches. And I was like, and she thought they were so pretty. And she just like, and to me, that just shows, like, sometimes we can judge ourselves about our stretch marks, about our size, about all of these things. And our kids just don't see us that way. My wild child, my son who's jumping around right now, he tells me all the time that I have a huge butt, but he means it in, like, I'm an adult and he's a child and his butt is tiny, right? Like, it's things like this. But he's like, because now this might be a personal opinion, like whether it's appropriate or not, but I'm always like, oh my gosh, you have such a cute little butt, right? And then so he's saying in a way like, you have such a cute big butt. It's just like he's trying to reiterate what I've said. And but it's funny because that kind of a statement, like being told that you have a huge butt, could really make a woman feel like garbage about herself if she allowed it. But I am actually, every time he says that, I'm always like, he just loves me, right? Like, it's just one way of him showing that he loves me. And of course, because he's a boy and it's like everything is about butts and not, but really they do show it fairly frequently if you allow it. And so, yeah, choosing to redirect our thoughts back to, like, what would they perceive this as. So yeah, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. I've never really thought about that, using that intentionally to go back and, like, what would my kids actually think? And that's really powerful. So for you, what was the hardest thing about becoming a stay-at-home mom? Because you were in corporate for a long time, right? Before you started working from home?
I was about 15, almost 15 years. So, that transition of, I think really the hardest thing is just recognizing that my worth and my value wasn't based on the salary I was receiving, because I was always getting paid. And I always was excited for a raise or a bonus or whatever it was, whatever perks came with a job. So leaving that, and for, a couple of years, I was exclusively a stay-at-home, not a work from home, running a business mom. So it was, I think, a year and a half, I was exclusively stay-at-home. And it was very hard to recognize that my value didn't change because I wasn't bringing home any income at the time. That was hard, especially because we're kind of conditioned. This is another social norm of just, not just motherhood, but really just existence. You make
Mhm.
money. Things cost money. You got to make money. You got to work hard. You got to have a job, and
Yeah.
I went along with that for very long, and I enjoyed it. I took pride in my work. So leaving corporate to be a mom, trying to find my value and feel accomplished and productive, all of that is a huge struggle. at the time.
So what would you say was like your first step, I guess, towards accepting yourself, I guess, as still being just as worthy as just to say it. Just I like that is such an air quotes thing, right? I being a stay-at-home mom is actually like I've been there as well, usually on maternity leave, but I have been there as well. And it has its own difficulties, right? Just like anything else, not having the automatic interaction with other adults is very difficult mentally, and not having that sense of fulfillment outside of your home, right? Whether that be like whether you're working from home or not, you kind of have this like outer fulfillment, right? Where when you are just staying home, it's like this is the only thing that I'm affecting. And it can feel very small, even though it's huge. It really is huge. Like we're raising tiny humans, and that is hard, right? Like that is, you're a tiny human too. A short human. And so, yeah, it is, there's no level of motherhood that is harder than any other level. You know, the brand new baby phase where they cry all the time and you can't figure out quite what they want, that is hard. And when they are potty training, that is hard. And when they are 5 and they won't be quiet, that is hard. And when they're 12 and they act like they're 30 and they talk back to you, that is hard. And it just keeps going, right? And I can tell you right now, from watching my mother, it's all hard, right? It is not, even once all of your kids are in their adult years, it is hard, and you still worry about them and you still feel responsible. And there's just there's no escaping that. And we don't really want to, but choosing that, like you said, like figuring out what standard you want to have for yourself, kind of thing, what measuring stick you're measuring by, right? Because it is really important. Like I personally try really hard to be as authentic as possible online, to show up and like really show what life really looks like. I talk about the hard things, I talk about the struggles, right? And I don't just like, you know, act like, oh, I've got this amazing business and these perfect kids and nothing ever goes wrong for me, and you know, let me help you make $10,000 months. Like that's not that's not my thing, right? Like I just, to me, the most important thing is creating that village that so many of us don't have anymore, right? And that's really what I want to do by having a space like this, by being able to bring on other women like yourself who are empowering other women, and we're just getting the message out there more and more and more, so that more moms can realize like I'm doing okay, and you know, I don't have to be perfect. And even to realize when they're having too much expected of them, because sometimes we don't know until someone says, right? And then it's like, oh, this isn't normal, this isn't, you know. And so that's really important too. So I love that. And I know that you also talk about self-care a lot. So do I. Like we very much are in line, a lot of the things that we talk about. But how does self-care help moms find equity in their relationships at home? You know, so that they are not feeling like they're completely unimportant and all of it.
Yeah, so this one, I love talking about this, and it gets a little roundabout, but I'm going to be concise because I know that your son is there.
Okay.
So it's kind of a twofold or a little more. So one thing I encourage every mom to do all the time, every woman, every human, like to me, self-care, it's healthcare, it's a human need. So you have to like recognize that and own that. It's part of your humanity is to need to take care of yourself. And once you see it that way, it's a little easier to then advocate for yourself with your partner. I need this time. I'm going to take this time for myself and do whatever it is, right? Go out for a run or a drive or meet up with friends or take a bath or literally whatever it is that you want to do. But when you recognize that this is part of your human existence, it kind of turns the tables a little bit. You're kind of more willing to advocate for it. Oh, okay, this is going to affect my mental and physical health. Let me prioritize that a little more. I kind of feel like the term self-care has been trivialized, you know, with like going and getting your nails done and doing makeup and whatever. And if that's your self-care, that's great. But for some people, their self-care is, exercise. And if you're giving up on exercise, it eventually impacts your health and your mental well-being. So by first believing self-care is something you innately need, you're able to advocate for yourself at home a little bit better. Also, one thing I like doing myself, but also I recommend, is practicing self-care with your partner, because in practicing self-care with your partner, they can then empathize with you and see, okay, this was nice. I do feel better. I understand why you need it. Like you said, something that has been normalized throughout decades, centuries, whatever, like you just don't know that something may not be normal, even though it's common. So, for a male partner to have their time to themselves, that's normalized. For women, it's not necessarily normalized. So by having the two of you do it together, like couples yoga is what is my practice of choice, we can then empathize with each other and recognize the importance of it while still actually doing. And lastly, the last point I have about this is that when you leave to practice self-care and you leave your partner with the children, it is through that experience that your partner then becomes more adept at taking care of the kids. They develop the instinct that it is assumed moms have. But that's not, motherly instinct isn't something we're born with. We develop it through experience. So as you said earlier, we happen to develop that if we were babysitters or, whatever else. We've been socialized and expected to be caretakers. So we develop the instinct through experience throughout our lifetime, so that when we get to motherhood, it's kind of there. But we were not born with that. Men can develop it just like we can. They can develop that fatherly instinct. And so by you advocating for yourself and taking the time for self-care away from the home, you are giving your partner the opportunity to develop the instincts you have, and therefore it's easier to kind of balance the default parent role or the mental labor, because they're doing it. They have to do it because you're not there.
Yep. Yep. I love that so much. And I think, we've said it a couple of times, but really that is what it comes down to, right? Is nobody's going to advocate for it except for you. And if you don't do that, not only are you like, I love how you put that self-care is healthcare thing. Like that's brilliant because really our mental health is just as important as our physical health and all of it. And yeah, so if we're not advocating for it, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity, but we're also not giving our partners the opportunity to learn to take on their equal share of that load, right? So that is really important, and getting that message out so that more women know that they can ask for it, that they should advocate for it, that it's even a thing, right, is super important. So I swear to you, like, this has been the live of like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. He like fell off my bed onto my laptop. I don't know if you heard that big crash, but that was like boom, like he just landed all over everything. I'm like, mute. You have been so patient with me. I am so sorry.
No, this is mom life.
It is, but usually for these, like, especially for like guest expert slots, I really love to give you more of the spotlight in that way and not be like everything being all dramatic on my end. But I do appreciate your patience with it and your, what is the word? Like you were able to stay like gathered, poised. You're poised throughout like the noises he's making and all of this stuff. Is there anything else that you wanted to share today that we didn't touch on?
I think we had like such a great in-depth discussion, and I love that this message is getting, kind of spread out there, not just about like challenging the social norms but like when you brought up mom guilt, like that's something that drives me so crazy, and that's why I love talking about it. So we touched on everything that I wanted to share. But I just want to encourage every mom whoever sees this ever, like, just because you have one idea of what motherhood is like, just because other people might tell you what you should be doing, that does not make it so. It doesn't make it your truth. And I want you to just always remember that you deserve to live authentically and be true to who you are. And that includes in motherhood. That's not just, it doesn't end when you become a mom. It just changes a little bit. And your authentic self is now someone who's also responsible for a little one, but you still deserve that. You're still a human. Like having a child does not take away the entire human you built for the number of years you existed before being a mom. You spent time becoming the person that you are. Don't forget that. That person is so valuable.
I love that. And I love empowering more women with that message. I love, I talk about the authenticity now and then too. It's something that is like a core value of mine, is to just be authentic and be vulnerable. And that is a really scary thought for most people, but yeah, just becoming a mom doesn't make you not a person anymore. And we all have needs, and it's absolutely right and good for your needs to be met. And so, I encourage any member of this group who is watching this on the replay, and even for anyone who's listening later, I do believe in this message. I do feel that it's very powerful. But for anyone who is watching or listening to this, I highly recommend that you go and join Gillian's group as well. She has a great group of her own, and the links are in the event. And when I get the podcast rolling, I will put the links in there as well. There are links to her website and to her social media and all of it. And Gillian, thank you again for your patience today. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. And even aside from today, thank you for what you're doing, because I truly believe that it is so important. And moms, more than anybody in the world, need that support. They need the people that are out there shouting it out that they're okay and that they are doing good, right? That they are good enough, that they are more than enough, and that they can't be wrong, that they can't screw this up, really, right? So thank you for everything that you do. And thank you again for joining me today. And we will talk more soon for sure. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure. And you inspire me. So
no.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all of you who were trying to find us today, all of you that finally did find us, and anyone watching this on the replay. Thank you for taking your time out of your day. This is a really important message, so I'm glad that you got to hear it. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great day, ladies. Bye.